Hello and welcome everybody to today's attributed session brought to you by us here at Dream Data. As usual, my name is Stefan, and I'm super excited today here to have a really strong practitioner, a marketing practitioner, as my guest today. We're going to be talking about the biggest challenges that B2B marketers face. We're talking how to drive growth in a world where buyer behavior, technology, AI, everything is changing fast right now. His name is Mark Goloboy. I hope I said that
No,
correctly.
Goloboy. It's easy,
Goloboy. And
easy
Mark
for me.
Mark has helped build teams and scale go-to-market engines at a lot of different companies: EMC, TripAdvisor, Formlabs, Demand Science, and a lot of others. And I'm sure Mark will go much more into details about this today. But what makes me most excited about talking to you, Mark, today is that you're a real practitioner and you do go to market for a living, I think you could
Yeah,
say. So, really looking forward to learning everything from you, from what's working, what's not working, which path have you been down that you're not going down again, and so forth. Mark, so thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. Now I said a lot of already a few buzzwords related. But what do you do for a living, Mark, and how do you present yourself to people who've not met you
yeah.
before?
So I grew up on the sales-facing side of marketing, mostly on at bigger companies. So some of the largest companies in the space, and EMC and TripAdvisor was kind of seeing how the big companies do it. I worked for several 50 to $500 million companies as well, where I got to build everything that I had learned at those companies, and built the sales and marketing engine that defined revenue for our companies. All of our new business flowed through. I often managed customer marketing as well. Now I do that for lots of clients. So we have clients in the marketing and RevOps space, and those are startups, some with very high valuations, and PE-backed and public companies. So we see different challenges at each stage of growth, and we come in to help companies grow faster. So often that's building the marketing technology, now building a lot of AI on top of it. We start with the strategic layer with the chief revenue officer and chief marketing officer. We understand the problem and then figure out ways to fix it, whether that's process or people or technology. Often analytics for what is the problem and how do we fix it each day, and how do we make it part of the process to learn constantly throughout. And that's about it. We do staffing and consulting, so we place the executives who lead marketing, and for some of those same clients and for other clients, we build the systems that produce better marketing.
Sounds like a pretty busy work week that you have yourself.
I do some of the work myself, so I get into the details where I can. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mark, before we get into all the specific stuff, how did you get into the craft of marketing?
I'm a technologist, so I didn't mean to be a marketer. So I was doing the technology work underlying marketing 20 years ago, when we had to build large-scale data warehouses to do the segmentation. And I was doing that for marketing and operations and finance and other departments in the company. And I got hired into Monster, which was the largest job site at the time in the world. And Monster wanted to rebuild their marketing around the technology that I knew how to do. And that's how I fell into marketing. And then I went on to lead operations and analytics and data governance for Monster. And that was really my introduction to marketing.
I love it. That's a very tangible way to get into marketing.
Yeah.
What was it you got right with the Monster technology or the tech stack at Monster back then?
So it was before we used the term ABM, and the best thing that we did was focus on our top 500 customers. So I had a person on my team who spent time in our CRM. We built Salesforce while I was there, but at the time it was Siebel and later Salesforce, that we looked across all of our accounts, found outliers that were related to our accounts but weren't naturally collecting. And we created hierarchies of accounts that then the sales rep could look across, sell against, and we could market to. So we were doing ABM 5 years before that label existed.
It sounds so straightforward, so natural to do it that way.
Today, but back then it was revolutionary.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Did you then go on to buy like some of these ABM platforms to do the job afterwards?
Yeah, I've bought and managed 6 Sense and Demandbase. We're partners with both.
Yeah.
We do that work for clients, and often the biggest gaps are in measurement and communications, because with turnover in demand gen and marketing leadership, we find that our clients don't remember why they bought Demandbase or 6 Sense. And we need to come in and say, here is the value you're getting from it. Here is the measured, ROI that you're getting from these programs, and start a new communication thread across marketing and into sales and across the executive team to share why it's valuable, or decide that it's not the most valuable thing that they should be doing, and kind of reimagine ABM at companies sometimes without those tools.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I'm sitting and like thinking about what to ask you, but like, so whenever you get a client, kind of how do you help like diagnose kind of where does the shoe hurt in terms of the conversation you said you had with the CROs, with the CMOs? What are kind of the diagnosis that you kind of go through with your clients?
Yeah, often individuals on the team know exactly where the problems are. And we need to just ask the question across different parts of the team to say what's working and what would you change if you could. And when we look across everything, we find themes that become a prioritized list of roadmap for the client to fix. So we did one of these in January at a $200 million company, where we started, the problem statement was we have too many tools, and we need to start to eliminate tools because we're spending too much on marketing technology. And when we got into the details, we found that there was no central ownership of marketing technology. So different groups were buying different things that were competing with each other. So in their case, it was a matter of picking the right tool and having the other teams come on to it. We often find that integration is the issue, where you bought a tool, you never fully integrated it, so then you bought another tool to do the thing that the first tool could have done, and when you integrate them, you can eliminate tools and simplify the stack.
Yeah.
But the client always knows. It's not true that the executive always knows, and often they're someone that's just come in. But like at the individual level, they know where the problems are and they can tell you where to fix them. And as a consultant, we can come in with fresh eyes, kind of hear all that and make recommendations to the chief marketing officer or head of rev ops on what to do next.
That's a very like humble approach, where others are like, this is our model, you have to buy into this model and do exactly what we say.
That doesn't work. So you can't possibly rebuild everything. So you just have to know where to fix things and where to improve things and how to make the current technology work. It is potentially a lot smaller, a fewer number of tools, but like, you can't replace everything all at once. That couldn't possibly work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'd love to hear kind of your take on kind of how do you see the technology landscape or the go-to-market technology landscape nowadays? Because I feel like 3 years ago, pre-ChatGPT, everything were kind of stable. You had your CRM, you have your marketing automation tool, and a few others next to that, but everything was kind of relatively stable. And these days, it just seems like a lot of the tech stack is up in the air right now, and some things a generic AI can solve everything. Others think that you're going to need specialized tools still for a lot of things, and I think it's easy to start sweating about whether are we doing the right things, are we making the right choices now, and it's also overwhelming because you see these these let's call them overly positive LinkedIn posts about how they just did one thing and then everything exploded. But kind of, how is your read of kind of this landscape the last couple of years?
The best clients that we work with are really starting to think strategically about how do they rethink marketing with AI as an enabling tool. So when you start at the strategy layer and ask the question, what should we do differently?
Yeah.
And which things are limited that wouldn't be limited if we used AI. So no one has enough content people to produce all of the potential content, for example. And when you think about things in terms of how could AI fix this problem, you start to create prioritized lists of what you should do first, and taking a revenue eye towards things and saying, where could we produce revenue if we fix this problem? Then you start to come up with use cases to invest in. And at the same time, you can have people innovating at their desktops with AI and bringing new valuable use cases up while you're asking the question, how do we solve this problem? And if you have individual innovation hit lists of corporate priorities that marketing can take on, then you can know where to invest. So we want innovation. We want people to do things with AI, but we need to create corporate level value by bringing those things across the marketing department and not just at one person's desk.
And you said something just quite implicit there about how you're evaluating all these projects by revenue.
Everything that we do is revenue based. So that was a finding early in my career. I used to say that if I bring an executive team share a voice, they're going to throw me out, right?
Yeah.
That you can do all of the individual channel measurement to get really good at each individual thing. But if you're not evaluating your marketing in terms of pipeline and revenue, you're missing the boat. So when we walk into a client meeting, we say, here's how this effort is going to change the revenue picture. If we just talk about efficiency or AI cutting people or not having to hire people, we're totally missing the boat. So what we do instead is talk about innovation, getting to new markets, getting to new customers, so that we're changing the revenue and pipeline picture for the client, and they can sell that internally. Their projects don't go anywhere if we talk about things that are not valuable. If we talk about performance of a channel in terms of traffic or eyeballs, like that's fine, but what did it do to change the revenue picture of the company?
And what are the roles, the jobs of the people you normally speak with? I'm just asking because some roles that lends itself easier to this this perspective.
Yeah, I mean, any marketer that doesn't talk in terms of that needs a person next to them that does. So we can put in when we talk with a marketer who thinks about things in terms of corporate strategy and messaging and kind of content to meet the need, that's great. They need a really good demand gen person sitting next to them that thinks in terms of analytics. And we often place the head of ABM or the head of demand at companies fractionally to show a company over 3 or 6 months what that person looks like and how they can improve the marketing efforts of a company, and then we'll help them write the job description for the permanent hire.
Yeah, I'm just selfishly thinking on my own team that like we have, for example, really good illustrators and designers. It can be hard for them sometimes to say, I directly impacted revenue with my nice illustration here. But at least then the person next to them, I think that's a good way of expressing it, needs to care about how.
And everything builds to that point, so when you understand the programs that are working, you start to know the graphic design and content that are needed for those programs to work. and you do more of that and do more of that program. When you look across and find programs that aren't performing, that aren't creating sales conversations that convert into sales, you do less of them. And it's kind of the when the graphic designer and content person see themselves in that way and think about, I'm working on a program that's creating revenue for my company, feels a lot better to go to work.
Facts. Super fun. Mark, so I guess you're exposed to so many different B2B companies that try to go to market in different ways. If we start with the what are the exterior effects that are happening to their buyer journeys, and kind of what is the interior kind of reaction towards how to deal with these? But if you first look at kind of what's happening in the kind of the B2B buying journey today across these companies, what is kind of impacting that?
Well, I mean, some portion of your market starts their research in AI tools. So they're using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. Claude is all that anyone was talking about in marketing. I was at a meeting, a CMO breakfast last week, where neither ChatGPT or Gemini were mentioned once, and Claude was mentioned probably 50 times by the panel. So it's like, that's what we're using today. It could be that one of those other tools updates and is better tomorrow. So we can't ignore ChatGPT and Gemini, but Claude today seems to be what everyone's talking about. So some portion of your buyers are starting their research journey in the LLMs, and you need to acknowledge what percentage that is. And it's often a guess because it's zero click. You can't really get good analytics on how much. So just ask your customers. And based on that, if it's 20 or 30 or 40% today, think about what it will be a year or two from now and do some scenario planning to say, what would I do if it was 50%? What would I do if it was 75%? And start to build toward that. If you're still 100%, if 100% of your thinking is around Google, you're wrong. So you need in B2B. So if you start to think, all right, it's 20% or it's 30%, you start to move some of your Google dollars, your paid Google spend, into other things like analytics around the LLMs, like SEO planning for transition to GEO, and thinking about things in terms of categories and questions rather than just SEO. You're starting to do the right things, and then you can invest more in it as the environment changes. But if you're not acknowledging that people start their buying journey in the LLMs and you're still doing SEO and paid ads, like paid Google ads, like you would have previously, you're missing a dramatic change in the market.
So that is it sounds like that is kind of the biggest thing on your mind right now, and how kind of buyer research is happening today.
So we blew away our website and replaced it with a GPT box. So we acknowledge that people don't read web pages the way they used to. We acknowledge that people will ask questions of ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. So we just replaced our homepage with a question box. We went into production 2 weeks ago for our first client doing that, and we intend to do that many more times. At that CMO breakfast, the CMO of a web CMS company said websites will never be the same. No one will ever publish websites the way they did 5 years ago again, right? They will all be heavily personalized and heavily answer engine based. So let's start doing that. Let's start marching towards that. Let's think about what websites will be in the future and start to think about, how do we answer people's questions rather than create lots and lots of content that no one's ever going to read.
That's funny. I have not arrived there yet, but I see your point that I think we're still building our website like it's
No, and it's
or-
you have a ton of content
Yeah.
which can become the answers to questions. You can take all of that and train GPTs that answer questions that your prospects and clients have, and start thinking about meeting them where they are while still having all the web pages behind it. So if they want that experience, they can go into it. Our first version of the design of a new website was a one-page website, and we talked with B2B CMOs this last summer. We talked with B2B CMOs in my network, and they said, don't do that. That's not the right thing to do. Some CMOs want to go deeper and research and see things, but if you look at the pages on marketgrowthconsulting.com, you will see that there is almost no content, and the blog is written heavily because it becomes the training for the GPT. So
Yeah.
we write frequently asked questions based blog posts deeply. We do those mostly based on me recording my voice and then publishing content that we then edit down. And we're quickly answering questions. We're also tracking the questions that people ask, seeing the answers. And if I don't like the answer, that's the next month's frequently asked questions blog post.
Yeah, I definitely see the I see why like really studying the questions that are being typed into your website being super valuable. What's been the reaction to putting this chat up on your as kind of the centerpiece on your website?
Getting new clients because of it. So we're growing rapidly because we are using that as a demand gen piece. So I'm telling everyone that we did that, and then inviting them to ask questions, and when they're ready, contact me. So this is the modern version of inbound marketing. So I don't write content to be found in Google. I created an AI thing in production, show people that, and then ask them to contact me when they're ready.
Interesting. Mark, I haven't seen too many websites that have like. In fact, you're probably the only one I've seen that has gone committed.
I'm the only one I know of in the marketing consulting space, and we just built one in the sales consulting space for the first time that we know of. There is one other one for a small agency that was actually the person who told me about the product originally, but he's not using it for demand the same way. I should go back and tell him what we're doing so he learns from that, because we've put our best consultants against it and said, what would you do with this new tool? And then we've gone and done that.
Yeah, it's really fun. And there's probably also a marketing lesson in that if you're doing something very different than others, then people do notice you.
That's the goal.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I'm just curious on kind of how is companies then responding or not responding to this big change in how should they be responding to this change in kind of how people research. Is it like they should start like re-editing all their content and optimizing it for the LLMs? Should they release new content or different types of content? Like, what are you kind of seeing as kind of the right choices or wrong choices here?
So we use GEO analytic tools. I mean, like Profound has become the big startup. SEMrush and Ahrefs do this. We use Revere. We think it's a really great tool for this. You look at your category, the categories that you're trying to market to, and the keywords that you and your competitors use. You put those into an analytic tool that looks across ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and others, and starts to analyze how the answers are for you and your competitors against those keywords. And often it tells you what sources the LLMs are answering questions with. So it then tells you which of those sources you should invest in, and that's often paid media. And we see for some companies it's Gartner and Forrester and G2. For some companies it's industry specific publications. but the LLMs are deciding how to prioritize answers about your company. And with an analytic tool, you can see that. It's been different for almost every company we've looked at. And different companies have different levels of traffic and sentiment, volume and sentiment about where their company shows up in the answers. We see one company that's a client of ours that does terribly in the LLMs, and they need to publish new content in the form that people are asking questions to resolve old issues about their products that are still coming up in the LLMs, because it's been trained on all the complaints that there have ever been about their product. So if they don't publish new content to the right places, the answers are naturally bad about them, and it's highly destructive.
Yeah. And is this something you kind of help people navigate as well, or they have to go buy other consultants?
The analytic tools are not us, but yes, we help them to carve out some of their Google ad spend and put that against the paid media sources that we see in the analytic tools, and then publish frequently asked questions content explaining how they are better than their competitors. And if they're not better than their competitors, they're going to lose anyway.
Yeah, it's this these LLMs is a little bit a funny thing, because it's like you see the tip of the iceberg of the impact they probably have.
And as simple as ask the LLM who's the best in your space, and look at the answers. That is a preview into the analytic capabilities that we can create for you. But you can already ask the LLMs, what's the best company in this space, and put in your keywords in LLM's space. We call them categories. For your categories that you're trying to own the questions for, put in a question and see what comes back. And do it in an incognito window, because the LLMs often know what company you're at and tell you the answer that you want to hear. So do it in an incognito window, because you'll see something different.
That's probably a good advice.
They are designed to give you answers that make you happy.
Yeah. Have you started touching the ChatGPT ads as of now?
No, I haven't yet. There is Facebook gave all of us the model over the course of the late 2000s and early 2010s.
Yeah.
They got as much volume as they could, and everyone believed that if they just kept getting bigger, they'd figure out the business model. So using that, ChatGPT needs to figure this out to go public eventually. They need to figure out the business model, and they need to show people there is one. But no, I haven't tested it yet. And I will certainly be spending money there over time. They will find a way to get my money and my clients.
We just got access a week back or something like that. So we've just launched the first few prompts. But
how's it going?
We haven't really managed to get a lot of attention from our ICPs, so to speak. We look at we haven't had many conversions, but even just kind of studying the IP address of those who
we know that the first real production AI use cases were Google and Facebook, and that over the course of the kind of mid to late 2010s, they were doing heavy AI analysis and presenting that back to you as ways to advertise, and presenting you results in a way that were accessing their data using the AI that later became ChatGPT and Gemini and others. But they've become multi-trillion-dollar companies on AI before anyone knew it was AI that was doing it.
And what was that? Sorry, was that which
Facebook
company?
and Google.
Okay.
Yeah. Meta and Google. So both the presenting to you the content for both Google and Facebook, and Insta, and obviously the others, but that both for presenting you and also giving you the advertising into it and finding those eyeballs that you want, was all AI for the last 10 years.
I hadn't thought about, so that would typically what you would refer to as the algorithm of Facebook or something like that.
It became really sophisticated. So in the moments after the GPT transformer paper, I'm forgetting the name of it, something about attention from Google back in like 2015. From that moment forward, they were giving the indication, we understand this stuff and we're going to start applying it to the algorithm that we used to be able to talk about in the late 2000s and early 2010s. We knew when there were changes to the algorithm. Now it's, constant and evolving with every query. So in Google and Insta and Facebook.
Yeah, I feel like I want to ask you kind of like where we, if you kind of extrapolate where we're at today, but also the path you kind of see the landscape is on, like just, you don't have to say 5 years from now, but just like a year or two.
I couldn't imagine what it's going to be 5 years from now, but we still see clients where for different roles, there are people who haven't started thinking about AI for their seat, and each person in your organization should be innovating. And each person should be trying things, and each person should be getting better each day. And then the best clients that we see do regular presentation monthly where people bring new use cases to the group and say, I'm doing this and getting a lot of value from it. You should try this. You should take my share link and build from it. You should take what I'm doing with an agent or custom GPT or even prompt, and you should get value from it. And the best people are doing that, and the best companies are measuring that and saying who on the team is the loudest voice helping others get better. And those people become management very quickly now. So like we see people that are jumping ahead quickly because they are going and figuring out Claude Code and Lovable and other things. And like other people that they work with haven't even tried yet.
Yeah, it's really an enormous opportunity, an inflection point for whether you actually choose to kind of understand this, try to understand this thing or not. We do in our marketing team, we do like a monthly session where everybody demos a little thing that they've done with AI, and it's that cross pollination is super helpful. That it like I do it like this way, and then another person spots, oh, I could use that little piece over here in.
And think about it from like a larger team perspective, where the CMO might not even know everyone, and they are seeing once a month who their future talent is that they need to make sure is on the promotion track. So that is the opportunity to differentiate yourself from your peers by building and being someone that thinks in an innovative way constantly.
Yeah. You definitely are in the. It's interesting to hear how like much a believer you are in this kind of like. The contrarian would say, "Oh, you shouldn't rely too much on AI, and you should do your own thing."
I'm not worried about the contrarian. They'll probably never be my client.
I think that's the right way of approaching it, Mike.
Yeah, but anyone that wants to build fast, like we don't work with slow-moving regulated industries. We don't work with contrarians. We work with people that want to move fast, and we move fast.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
good point. I'm just kind of so like it's like things have just been moving so fast just the last 12 months, and I'm just super curious to see where we're at. And like no one was talking about Claude.
No one. 6 months ago, we weren't talking about Claude. Last summer, I was pretty even between ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude because I was trying to kind of balance my own knowledge. Yeah. And then I stopped using Claude for like 6 months until whatever release we were talking about Claude Code suddenly being able to create apps in like January or February. And I had to resubscribe and get good at it again. Yeah. Now we use it all the time.
Yeah, that's
I'm creating proposals from transcripts. We've loaded in our brand guidelines,
yeah.
and I'm creating client proposals from transcripts that are 80-90% of the way there, and I just edit the final because they're all based in our voices talking about it. So they've got the client voice and my voice, and all I need to do is put that into Claude with our brand guidelines, and we pump out PowerPoints.
What's your perspective on this kind of the fear of kind of let's call it maybe brain rot, or kind of like that if you get so used to not having to think about anything, kind of where's that leading us then? Or like, well, how do you slice the usage of AI in the right way is probably what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking about here. Clearly,
I'm worried about junior talent developing into manager and director level.
Yeah.
We will hire less at the junior levels. We'll expect more from the mid levels.
Yeah.
And how do you then develop the mid levels? And I think that is a big concern. I think more heavily now than I did when I was doing the same projects over and over again. So when I need to go into a client and think about governance and observability and which agentic tool does which things in a stack that it's constantly new, like 6 months ago, I saw Pinecone for the first time on a architecture diagram and had to learn what that was. About the same timing, I had to learn what an MCP server was, and like now these are things I talk about all the time because I've learned them over the last 6 months and know what to do with those things. From Pinecone is what's called a vector database. It's where you create the map between the questions and answers from an AI perspective that then go into an LLM or GPT, right? So it's a component that I didn't even understand 6 months ago that I had to learn.
I just learned about it now.
So no, it's when I first saw it, I was like, what's this wacky open source thing? And then I looked it up and realized that it is the leading version of that piece of the architecture, and I'd never heard of it. So like, I would have said the same thing about agentic in 2020, late 24, early 25. I didn't know what the letters RAG meant. And then 3 months later, we were building RAG solutions for a client, So it's like that kind of learning is still out there. You just have to go and access it.
And really like a wild time right now because there's more opportunity than ever out there, and it's so accessible. But if you neglect it, then somebody else is just gonna fly straight by you.
That is definitely true. You have to keep learning. You have to keep trying new things. If as soon as you say AI can't do that, you should think maybe I haven't tried hard enough.
If we change chapter a little bit, or maybe we'll return back at the same place, then like amongst all the companies you work with, what would you say kind of are the traits of those who do really well at the moment?
So we talked a little bit about measuring things in terms of revenue. So if you think about your cost and value of every program and think about it in terms of return on investment, and do that calculation to learn what a dollar spent in one channel produces in terms of dollars of pipeline and revenue, then you start to talk about conversion rates, and you start to think about how do we create more volume at conversion rates that sales can sell. And you start to create stack ranks of programs. So, within a geography or within a product area, you're creating lists of marketing programs by ROI and saying these ones are at the top, these ones are in the middle, and these ones are at the bottom of the stack. And the top of the stack, you'd obviously put as much money as you can into because they are likely producing 5 or 10 or more dollars of ROI for every dollar you put in. In the middle, they're probably things that you just can only do so much of, right? They're good, they justify doing over and over again, but they probably can't scale. And at the bottom, you need to cut those programs. And the best marketing teams are looking at that stack and saying, how do I produce more revenue? How do I produce more pipeline that sales can convert? And you're starting to think about investing more in good programs and investing less in bad programs. And when someone says, I love that program, we can't get rid of that. You need them to come on board with the analytic approach. We need to get rid of them. So like, it's fine to stand up for what you do, but if you're not producing revenue, you need to do it better.
Is that something you would kind of, what does this, like, I guess this is somewhat of a mapping that you do in a sheet or somewhere similar. Is it like something
at the starting point, it's just most programs aren't measured by ROI. Yeah. Most programs for most companies are, when you ask someone what's working, they say, this one's working. And you say, well, what's the ROI? They have no idea, because most companies don't do attribution well. So bringing back to Dream Data, but like we've done attribution forever. I've owned predecessors to Dream Data for 10 or 15 years before it. And our hardest marketing operations challenge, our hardest analytic challenge was attribution. And most companies don't do that well. They don't apply the resources, they don't have the tools, and they can't even measure things in terms of ROI. So at a starting point, just starting to measure things by ROI, then you end up with a whole set of things that can't be measured in terms of revenue, and you have to figure out what to do with them. And we often advise clients to take like 20 or 30% of their budget and put them against quote unquote awareness activities that can't be measured in terms of ROI, but are the right things to do. But for 60 or 70 or 80% of your marketing budget, you should be able to put dollars next to it, or you should redefine your marketing budget.
That's a nice and rational approach.
And create that agreement for what percentage with your chief financial officer. Yeah. Say, we are going to spend 30% on the events that sales wants, on the brand and website and corporate things that we know are the right things to do. And the other 70% we're going to spend on revenue producing demand gen and all of the things needed, product marketing, corporate marketing, et cetera, that build toward that. And we're going to make them measurable, and we're only going to do the things that produce the most ROI.
Preach. That's definitely, so that's like, let's call it, that's one point, measure your activities up against the ROI. What in terms of the technology or like infrastructure, like the tech stack, what are you seeing kind of as kind of good habits or best setup or something like that at the moment, or is it even important?
So lots of technology doesn't integrate with AI. You should move on from those technologies. So if your product that you are spending lots of time in, or lots of people, or lots of dollars, don't integrate with AI so they can't get better, find a new vendor. So that is the first thing that we say to clients. We spent, I don't want to trash the vendor, but we spent 3 projects at 3 different clients over a year to get data out of a vendor through Clay, which is a wonderful integration tool. So Clay is normally sold based on enrichment use cases. We use it to integrate marketing technology in the ways that we used to use Zapier and Workato. In line, we can add AI in Clay, so we can make the data better by the time it gets to the next place. Then we put AI against it and build custom GPTs for clients, where they're asking questions to the data from tools that don't integrate with AI and getting AI answers out of that data. And by doing that, we are solving a problem, but the right solution is just to replace that vendor.
That's interesting. Like, so for any vendor, you see it as a key point that their data is like easily possible to plug into AI nowadays as kind of a key component?
Yeah, why would you want a tool in the marketing stack that you can't do that for?
Yeah. No.
So like think about transcription. Think about every call that you record. There is gold in those transcriptions. Now look across your sales team. 50 sales reps had 500 conversations with clients today. What can you learn from that?
That's crazy.
Who are your top 10 retention risks? Where are your top 10 opportunities today that like the reps haven't even put the data into Salesforce yet for?
That's funny. Mark, I'm pulling forward a piece of paper here because you're gonna be the first test of a new concept, which is kind of a more. We normally I haven't done these rapid fire questions before, but now I'm gonna spend the last 10 minutes here just shooting quick questions at you.
Go ahead. I will give quick answers.
Yeah. Okay, let's try them out. What is one metric every CMO should pay more attention to?
Oh, we talked about our ROI. So if you can't measure a program by ROI, classify it as awareness and limit it.
I'll try to not engage in the conversation too much.
No, I'm being quick, but I can expand on anything.
Perfect answer. What is one metric marketers probably overvalue today?
Traffic. So everyone looks at traffic and clicks and like, oh, that's two metrics, but like I'll go clicks. I'll settle on clicks because they think that clicks equal revenue and clicks equal what the vendor of those clicks are trying to sell you. So like if you then think about how did that produce sales conversations and which of those sales conversations became sales, you start to ask the right questions.
Cool. What is one AI trend B2B marketers are underestimating?
I think that thinking about your content in terms of answers to the questions people ask, no one's doing that enough. So you have people that go to Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT and ask a question. What answer would your content give to that question that a client is asking, that a prospect is asking? Don't think about it in terms of what you should say. Think about it in terms of what questions are your clients asking.
Love it. Cool. What is one capability every marketing team should develop this year?
They should look across transcription. So they should think about recording every sales conversation and then think about at the CRO and head of RevOps level, what questions could you ask of that data that would give you insights that would change what you do tomorrow?
Yeah, that's like all our calls recorded by Gong and put into a data warehouse now, and then our product marketing team, they're all over these things.
Yeah, and like, how does product marketing write better content? How does sales have better sales conversations? How does marketing think about their website differently? Like, all of that can be asked of the transcripts.
Okay, now a question that I already know what you're going to answer, so I'm going to give you some limits. What is one thing you would change about how companies measure marketing success? And you can't say pipeline already.
All right. So they should think about sales conversations. So if in my forms, if I asked questions, I would know the sales conversation to have. Now take that one step forward. With a GPT, I know the question you asked and I know what conversation to have with you. So we are automating HubSpot demand based on the questions that people ask because we're tagging the site and we're letting them ask questions in a tagged environment. So we know the company, we know the person, we know the question. Now write an email that's personalized based on that without being creepy to say, you asked this, if I can't just say, you asked this question, let's talk about it. But I can say, it seems like people at companies like yours are interested in ... and start would you like to talk about this?
Yeah.
And the people that answer that are amazing prospects. And
Yeah.
you know what conversation to have with them without referencing that you tracked that they asked the question.
Yeah. A non-creepy, friendly.
Non-creepy. Never be creepy.
Love it. Okay, 2 more. What is one prediction for B2B marketing over the next 3 years?
Websites will look different. So we tried to get ahead of that. This started last summer. I was using GPTs. I was saying, why don't websites work like this? How would my website work like this?
Yeah.
We started building it with agentic technology. We found a solution that had already built that, and we used that on our website, marketgrowthconsulting.com. Check it out. But we think websites will look something more like that, where it's just a GPT box in the middle and there's minimized content behind it a year from now.
Is there a vendor you want to plug here, Mark? Or is
we partner with Webless. Happy to introduce anyone.
Yep.
Suyog at Webless and I ran a chief marketing officer lunch in Boston last month, and like there was no lack of conversations from showing that technology and the analytics we're building behind it to 30 CMOs.
I think it's such a thank you for bringing some very new perspective on this, Mark. Thank you. Last one. If every CMO listening could make one change this quarter, what would have the biggest impact?
They should encourage everyone to use AI. Look at what happens by having them present the best use cases, and find out who's not curious, because they need to encourage that among their team. They need to highlight the good curiosity and innovation that's happening, and they need to infuse that into their performance and promotion cycles to promote the people who are doing interesting things before they leave.
Oh, wow. Very good, Mark. Thank you so much. This was fun. I might go into
fun conversation, Stefan. I really entertaining. Thank you.
All right, Mark. So we're at the end. If people where do you want to point people's attention to, kind of if they want to follow you or they want to
I'm easy to find. If anyone wants to have a conversation about this, they can find me on LinkedIn. My name is unique. They can reach out to me at mark@marketgrowthconsulting.com, and they can go to marketgrowthconsulting.com to see the GPT that I mentioned. And if they want to talk about the analytics automation that we're building behind the analytics on that site, happy to share what we're doing. It's a pretty cool use case.
Fantastic. And if you're listening to this after we were live, then do go in and write if you strongly agree or disagree with Mark. We'll both pay attention to it afterwards.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, Mark, and everyone. Thank you so much for listening to us. And do reach out with any questions you might have afterwards.
Thank you, Stefan.